G'day, Doggies fans, all things Bulldogs. Welcome to Sunday night. Doing the live episode of our review. Couldn't do it on the night. I was pretty pissed off. Couldn't do it yesterday. Didn't want to do it yesterday, and I'm doing it now. So let's get this done. Welcome to everyone who's already jumped on. Sorry I was a bit late. G'day to Snopzay. Yeah, it's been a real rough weekend for dogs in all grades. So be looking to bounce back. The Jersey flag pretty much can't make the top 5 now. New South Wales Cup and Jersey flag went to Canberra. Both were in front at different times and had opportunities to win and played quite well, but the Raiders were able to get the chocolates in both games. But still a lot to like in a lot of the stuff that happened. It's not the same type of assessment to apply on those guys. It's quite different, to be honest. But the ladies fought hard in North Queensland, struggled a bit, missing a couple of key players. Surprised Taylor Preston was there tonight, but they went down to the Cowboys 22-6 after trailing 12-0 at half time, with opportunities to get a try before half time, but just wasn't to be. And we lost Ron Massey Cup as well to Wentworthville with Jared Hayne. Abraha, welcome. G'day, Michael. Glad you could make one. Yeah, lots of Dogs fans, 31,000. So we'll go through all the stats. The stats do tell a story here, and I'll carefully go through it. Now, there's a lot of crap being thrown at Anari Tuala, a lot of crap being thrown at Lachlan Galvin, a little bit at even Jacob Preston, all this sort of stuff. But I'll give you the actual context behind it. I'm not here to defend poor performances. That was definitely a poor performance. But a couple of the players really had some poor performances in key areas and key moments. And the team was a little bit down. And, it sort of comes off the back of constantly having to prove themselves, I think. It's like we've got to prove ourselves every week. And it gets to a point where that's going to run a little bit thin, I think. G'day, Noah. I'm well. How are you? Nah, that's all right, Michael. It's good that you know that it's not all on you now, brother. But, I'm very superstitious. I've got to wear the right sort of underwear and stuff. And it's quite funny. The type of deodorant I use on the day, which sock you put on first, all this sort of shit. It's so hilarious, to be honest. Welcome, doggies. Up the doggies. No, Brian, you need to be dropped. Okay? You don't understand footy. I told you this with your comment before. Okay? You don't get it. You don't get it, mate. All right? Should Brian To'o be dropped? Should Brian To'o be dropped, mate? Coates beat him twice on the weekend. Should he be dropped? You got no idea, mate. He's not our best winger in our club or in our best 17 at the moment. No. But I can tell you it wasn't his fault. The kicking was perfect and the placement was perfect. And Daniel Tupou did a wonderful job and he needs credit. The Dogs actually practiced how they would spoil those moments. And you're not allowed, if you go and try and out jump Daniel Tupou, you don't win the contest, mate. Get over yourself, seriously. And anyone else who wants to sit there and tag that line, be prepared to get a different sort of response from me. There were other players who lost their heads, which gave the Roosters 30 minutes of possession and made it so we only had 21 minutes. It's not like they ran in 14 tries. Okay? They got around us once in the 77th minute when we'd made 100 more fucking tackles. Do you get that? You want to blame Tuala for that as well? Our players across the board were down in most stats. And it's this sort of noise that gets made by all the people who struggle to be positive about the club and the team, pick out players they like, pick out players they don't like, and then every time, wingers, especially wingers, like there's so I've said it here numerous times. They are the scapegoat so often. If the team gets the process done, it holds parity in the middle. Those opportunities are far and few between. And to be honest, I was quite happy with the way we defended on the other night. 45 missed tackles. Yeah, that happened when we had, 13 minutes with the ball between the 65-minute mark and between the 15-minute mark and the full-time siren. Down 70% possession. Now, we had about 65% possession in the first 14 minutes. And you know what happened? We scored a try, and it was quite easy. So that's where you need to start looking. What happened that changed the context of the game? The first thing that happened was a penalty against one of our middles, who then backed it up, giving away 6 again. All right? And then we couldn't maintain that momentum. They got away a perfect kick. It's not like we didn't chase from there. And then, and you got all these people saying, and the talk afterwards, maybe Crichton should have been on the wing and blah, blah, blah. And, it's because we took Sexton and Marnie out and all this sort of shit. And we had no attack. You got Nathan Highmarsh saying we've got no attack. Well, what I can see is about 500 points that we've scored, or just under that. There's about 8 or 9 teams with a worse attack than ours. Was there a problem with our attack when, we beat South and Newcastle to 0 when we came home against the Raiders and scored 32 unanswered points in 40 minutes against the Raiders at their home? Was there a problem with our attack that day? Oh, it must have been because Sexton was there. Sexton had a good game that day when he played more of a 5'8" role than a halfback role. But we need to start focusing on what happened, not each individual moment, but what leads it to a point where one of the best attacking sides with their best side on the park all season, I might add, except for Nat Butcher, who is a good player, but he keeps bunging his knee. That's pretty much their best side that they can assemble. And they did a really good job of it. For the first 15 minutes, yeah, they were strong with their forwards in that first 15 too. But guess what? We forced them into an error. Galvin and Burton did an amazing kick that got us out of trouble. Galvin was turning him around. Bailey Hayward turned him around with a good kick. And we got points off the back of our domination with possession and field position. And then it went sour from there. So you just got to look at it from that point of view. Yeah, and there was some players in our side who haven't been really named by anyone, because it's funny, thou shall not be named or messed with if they're, proven to have been great for us for a long time. And look, everyone's allowed to have a bad game. When a couple of players in a similar position don't play well, you can't go and blame it on the winger who got out-leaped. You don't blame it on the coach because he should have had Carraz there. I would have expected Carraz to have been there as well, but Anari was on the right the week before. No one gave a shit when he scores 2 tries. And all of his carries are being good. His defence has been really good as well. Do you think Mark Nowinga with Tawase, who's been scoring tries in a similar fashion, outstanding tries in the air the following week, who they all talked about, maybe the coach got outsmarted a bit and thought, I might keep Carraz on the left, keep that combination with Anari on the right for a little bit. It went pretty well last week when we smashed the Warriors. No one was complaining then. Maybe we're going to be copping at both sides. they went to who they thought was the weakest link, which wasn't Ari Tuala, no doubt. He tried his hard. He tried to spoil the ball. He just wasn't good enough. And Tupu was absolutely brilliant, Daniel Tupou. So congratulations to them. And Robinson pointed it out as well. He goes, I can see the Bulldogs actually worked really hard on trying to stop that stuff. Like they'd prepared for that. But Daniel doesn't realise how good he is most of the time and did a great job, and the kicks were perfect. You know, as much as Robinson can spin it, he is a good coach. The only criticism I make is that they make so many mistakes and have done for a long time, and they cheat giving away penalties. But guess what? We gave away bloody 10 penalties, and 8 of them in the last 65 minutes. 8-2 the count was, and they got a 6 again. And that's so from the 14th minute mark, they get 8 penalties, and we get 2. I think we get 1 near the end and then 1 after half time, or just before or something. They got a lucky try before half time. That, you know, points pressure was obvious. They were playing well. They were running downhill. They did well. It's a bit different to the game earlier in the season where, although we were losing, we were still grinding away at them and getting things done. And I felt that Burton and Galvin, they kept turning inside, kept going to the edge back rowers to tire out their halves. They were doing their job. But then when we would then have to defend the next set, we'd give away a penalty and have to defend a repeat set. Okay? This is the sort of stuff. If we don't give that penalty away and it goes back into a ball in play, set for set, eventually that stuff works, and that's when we start to make headway with our attack. But we didn't. And the Roosters are always, you know, they've had some bad games and bad periods where they leak points, but they're a good defensive side. They always have been, ever since Robinson's been there, and it's been in their framework for years, for yonkies. They deserve credit, and they've got a good side, and you need over 6 players that are state of origin and international level to be able to win a comp. All but 2 teams in the NRL era have won a comp, have had over 5 players, okay? There's only 2 sides that didn't. Manly in 2011 and Wests in 2005. Every other side has had multiple origin and rep players in their team, and they still qualify, and I've said it all week. Do you think we'll stay in the top 4? We win one more game, we stay in the top 4. I've done a lot of analysis on it. We win one more game, we stay in the top 4. If we don't win any, we could drop back to 5th, but the Broncos would need to win every game, and they could. That's another thing, you know. They've got 2 really good halves, and then they go and buy another one. You know, Billy Walters can play halves, no problem. He's played for the Broncos at 6 before. He's a good footballer. They've got them. You've got Penrith, can definitely to make the 4, and Warriors have a kind enough draw that if they can get their game on, and they've got enough games at home, and that, you know, they can make the top 4 as well. So, you know, we finish 5th. I don't care. We qualify. Obviously, it'd be better to have 2 bites of the cherry. But for me, once Reid Marnie said he needed to go, Bailey Hayward was the plan. And it's been planned and worked on the whole season. Don't feel sorry for Reid. Reid wanted out of our club the moment we said we weren't going to extend him. And I've got proof of that. Okay? Now, that's just him reacting to that. It's like, okay, well, you're likely not to extend me past then. That's what, he's not born yesterday. I need security now for my future. I need to get out of here. I need to negotiate with other clubs. And once we're in a position to work out our stuff, our checks and our balances, we sign Galvin, of course. Other stuff happens. Okay, now you can go. But we were planning on keeping Reid Marnie for another year and progressing Bailey Hayward over the next 2 years. It has to be fast-tracked. His delivery slower, yes. I really focused on that. His speed of pass off the ground. I find he's really good at bringing people onto the ball in a like a Cameron Smith style, especially later in games. But it's harder to do that when the heat's on. He tried his heart out. Can he get Payne Huss and put him on his ass one-on-one? No. But he did a brilliant kick in the game early, which took a lot of pressure off us. He has that ability. We saw what he did in the first time we played the Roosters. It was his run that no one expected that brought us back into that contest and got the thing cranking. He has got skills. His communication, they talk about that all the time. But a lot of this is PR because they have to get this done, and they will sacrifice. They're not going to sacrifice the belief, right? The coach isn't telling anyone, I don't think we can win. He's sitting there holding them. I expect we're going to win this comp, and if you don't expect that, get the fuck out. He's a dead set, determined human being that he wants to win this comp, but he also knows about development and everything else. And these players are in key positions. They need the reps. And sorry, if our other players were so good, they wouldn't be in the position they're in. They wouldn't be leaving the club. They've been great. Great's a word I use a lot. They've been good. They've helped. But will they take us further? Maybe. But for how long? They're departing. We had to move forward. I get it. It's frustrating. And we have been inconsistent. But the inconsistency is all fixable. It's not like we're outmatched in every fucking area. Like all this talk, every loss, Bulldogs don't have a player who can just take the game by the scruff of the neck. I thought Burton's 40-20 last week was pretty good at 2-2. When we win that game, 30-14, their 2 tries, complete luck. Intercept, something else. Little scrap, ricochet off a kick. These sort of things are just noise. The club don't give a fuck about that shit. And it's our own player, it's our own fans who make the most noise. It's each club's own fans that are the worst. I don't care what other people's fans say about us. That's just banter, They can be as mean or evil as they want. They can come on here and say Anari Tuala is shit. But when it's from a Bulldog supporter, nah, fuck that. Enjoy it how you want, but don't come here and with your rubbish. And I don't care if 99.9% of the people agree with you. It doesn't mean you're right. It's just populism. Welcome, gets on. And it's good. Don't Break Defence. The flag was on Channel 7 before the game, which was great. He did play pretty good, Noah. G'day, Timmy. It's been a tough week, but we get up again, dust ourselves, and go again. Brian, I think there's no one more arrogant that I've ever met than you, my friend. And I know and good on you for continually coming back. And I don't know if you just want attention or if you just actually understand that I'm not a bad person, but I have insulted you a little bit. And you've sort of held it together and kept your focus on insulting our club and our team. But remember, they're as human as you and me. And I don't care whether they get paid $1 million or 150 grand or a train and trial amount. You can go to the game, you can shout out whatever you want, but when you come on here, you be respectful to the players in the club. Or you go into timeout. G'day, Gratitude. Dreg, tough game. We'll be on SPAC. Say, yeah, g'day, Mick. Been very inconsistent the last several weeks. Yeah. Well, I look, the last 4 weeks we have. People look at the St. George game and basically treated it like a loss. Then they went out and beat 2 top 4 sides in a row. But anyway, and probably should have beat the Warriors in New Zealand on the weekend. They've lost 3 of their forwards to concussions. Like, they're going all right, the Dragon. And they remind me a little bit of us. They're just getting closer and closer, more competitive. Wheels fall off in different times, but they're going to be a tough team to beat in Vegas, I could tell you that much. You heard it here first. Michael, yeah, Mick, I'm trying to see what did different in the week to see if the reason why we lost. We also played final stop footy at the start of the season. We're starting to look exhausted. I don't know if it's, look, they're all narratives. They might exist in people's heads, and it might be true to you. It's not true to me. I think we've just built our season around defence, and we had a much kinder draw than we've had in a very, very long time. But you still got to go and win those games, and that's not easy. A lot of those sides have got scalps in the Storm and were smashing Penrith earlier in the year, and it's a funny game, rugby league, as Gus says. You can't, cliches and narratives are one thing, but at the end of the day, no game's been easy for us. And that's because, I said something today. I did a couple of sort of propaganda articles to give people the truth, the Marnie, the Haywood, the Galvin situation, the Sexton thing. Just clear it all up a little bit, and it's all true. But when you're sitting there and every time we lose, think about it. You watch us lose a game where it pretty much looked like we were dominated. Ask what happened in that game to make it people go back to saying we're too small and the coaches stuffed us up by putting Galvin in. What? Because Galvin did off that, that play where he did that kamikaze kick and went dead, which was off, off throwing the ball around, trying to get stuff happening. Or was it when it went 20 centimetres too long and outstretched and they caught it in goal? Was it because of that? Was it when, they were just doing a kick chase and it ricocheted, and because he was in front of Critter, it was an accidental offside, which I thought their player actually played at the football and it's not an actual charge down. They were actually trying to catch the ball and just stop the ball, which to me was a knock on, which comes before the accidental offside. But anyway, that was from the touch judge. They did another one from the touch judge from Carraz, which was facing his own line and was trying to offload backwards. So what if they touch it when he's facing it the other way? But these calls, they just call it, okay, it's touch the opposition player. It's like when you go in to do a winger goes in to tackle someone and it hits their hand. A lot of them mean to knock it down as well. But sometimes it's just an accident. Like, they haven't played at the ball, but they say it all the time, Played at the ball, knock on. Then the other team gets another set. They've just decided that that's the way it rolls. But there's 2 calls where the ref had missed it or let it go, and you can call them 50-50s, but actually get intervention and call back. And then you've got the amount of penalties given away by a couple of our forwards. Between King and Curran, 5 or 6 penalties. It looked like Curran was most of them, but on reflection on the stats, the ref must have called something out. I literally thought Curran got done for 3 flops and a head high. King gave away the 6 again and the first penalty, which led to their try. He could barely make a metre. His post-contact average was smaller than it's ever been, and he was kept off the field for a long time in the second half. There's something obviously not right there. Now, Sam Hughes plays 40 minutes and they've been building his minutes again. And this is the other thing you don't get. You're talking about, we need an extra forward on. What's an extra forward going to do? Right? What's an extra big body going to do if they can't play long minutes under pressure? It's all right if we've got control of the game. We could play fucking four big forwards and just roll away with it. No problem. But you need to have players there that are fit and can play 80 minutes. We've had to develop Max King from bench player with multiple knee injuries into state of origin player. Okay? We've had to develop Sam Hughes from reserve grade in Parramatta. Sharks former centre edge back rower played a bit of prop at Parramatta. Then we got him mid-year. Then he got injured in New South Wales Cup. And, we've developed his minutes. And then he got injured early again this season. But now he's building his minutes up again. He played 37 last week, 40 this week. And he did a phenomenal job. Okay? Then you move on to players like Daniel Saluka-Fafita. We brought him for an opportunity for him and for us. He was developing at both clubs that he was at, increasing his minutes, and we've done the same thing. But they've got Sam Hughes in front of him at the moment. Now, we've also got these juniors we're developing, and that takes time. They've got to progress slowly from each year, and then you put them into New South Wales Cup, and then you get them against men, and they suffer injuries. They struggle to manage it. Okay, we've had to develop our forwards. We couldn't sign people, and Gus isn't going to go out there and sign Adam Fanua-Blake. If Adam wanted to come to us for, say, 700, 800 grand, we probably would have done it because we know he can play long minutes. He's got good footwork and he makes his tackles, right? But Gus isn't going to go out there and play, and you've just got to listen to the patterns with his speech. If a player doesn't, comes to him and talks about another club or another code and wants a negotiation, which essentially says his mind work is, unless he was already about to meet up with them and wanted to actually extend them, they hadn't made his mind up for him, and that's how he operates. You have to make the club's mind up for them. If they don't believe you have proven yourself that you're going to ascend to an extra level or influence the scoreboard or whatever it is, if you haven't convinced them of that, and then you go, and then your manager or you go to that meeting, there's a good chance you're not getting a deal. Not to say that I know for a fact that the club does a lot to try and help players find new homes and stuff as well when they know that it's going to be cut short, because they're not getting signed if they're bad people on the surface anyway, So there's a definite care for these players. But if they're trying to make the negotiation, talking about how other clubs might be interested, that's basically saying, oh, so you're saying that another club would take you, so you want us to sign you now, sort of thing, and get you sorted. Yeah, well, guess what? Do you want a reference? It's how it works. So they want to get kids who are passionate about playing for the Bulldogs. They wouldn't even consider going on anywhere else unless the Dogs said, sorry, we can't help you. We won't be re-signing you. And apparently Gus is very transparent about that stuff. When you listen to, interviews from players and shit like that. So if he's knocking on your door, and you'll notice all the players we keep generally, for the most part, are extended before they're off contract. And if they're people playing a role and a purpose, or they've had a bit of a clouded history with their injuries or whatever it is, they sort of think, oh, this guy might be all right. If we give him another year, we'll try that. They'll extend them that way. But most of the time, they're getting it done pretty quickly. King himself's had multiple upgrades. before being off contract. Same with Carraz and Preston already, and these players. They're getting upgraded before they go on the market. Once they're sort of talking, oh yeah, I'll just leave me manager to work it out. See you later. I always say Burton was a different case because he had that player option, which was a security to get him into our club and a master stroke. Okay. Refuse to jump. Brian, they practice to spoil. And when you jump, when you lose your feet, Brian, and you get out matched in the air, which is what's going to happen every single time when you're going up against either one of those wingers, you can't tackle the player now. They're putting people in the bin for that, for tackling them in the air, even if they just hold on to them on the way down, which probably helps break their fall a little bit, to be honest. That's why, okay? That's why Critter's not jumping into it. Because if you lose that mid-air battle, you got no chance. They're trying to spoil it from the ground and then be in a position to be able to hold him up and stop him. They just couldn't get it done, right? Learn rugby league, for fuck's sake. Learn the rules, see what's actually happening around the joint and understand why people do things that they do. And ask the question, why did the coach put him there? Why has the coach done that? It's not because he's fucking arrogant, you idiot. You want to see outrage, I'll fucking give it to you. I've had enough, mate. Leave the players alone and understand that, yeah, some of them make mistakes. Some of them are out of form and need to be dropped. But the coach knows when that is. He knows when to pull that pin. And they've done that with a couple of players, all right? He backs the players, even to the point where they've only just been getting through training. And then he says in his press conference, rather than slam them, he blames himself, which is like Dad telling you, I'm disappointed in you. Or sorry, I'm disappointed in myself because I didn't make the call as a coach to stop you from playing when you're struggling to actually, practice your actions, and then you get out on the field and sort of get what that's going to be the outcome. When you can't practice properly, you're not going to play properly a lot of the time, especially if you're not really, really experienced or a player like a Terry Lamb or someone like that. So I thought that was really good use of words and great coaching from that point of view. But at the end of the day, Satili Tupanua, if he's fit next week, he's coming in. So someone's making way. And if Marcello Montoya comes in, if he's fit to go and ready to go, Anari Tuala will be making way. But Jacob Carraz was way down on what he did on the weekend. It wasn't because he was on the left, right? It was because the Roosters were pretty good. Our forwards kept giving away penalties, marching them upfield so they didn't have to earn their way up there. And, yeah, they were able to get repeat sets and dominate possession and field position. And that's why we lost. No other reason. A couple of forwards were down. Yeah, they were. And it's proven in what happened. Max King, 40. Do you think Max King making 40 metres is normal? Do you think that's because of Nafahu White, Victor Radley and Lindsay Collins? King's better than Lindsay Collins. I don't give a what he can do. But he couldn't do it because there's obviously an issue. I don't know if we'll hear more about it. He might have been sick. He might have been flat. He might have had a bad preparation because he might have done the wrong thing with his preparation. He might have stayed up late. Might have got on it. Might have had a good night with the missus. And I doubt it, though. But I'm just saying, people make mistakes. People don't always have a good preparation. And then it shows in their performance. And we got to, I'm pretty sure if if we're all that bloody holier than thou that we can all hold our heads up and say we're perfect and go out and do everything the right way, well, sure, give you criticism, but they had an off night. A few players had an off night, made it worse for everyone else. Yeah, and their forward pack, because they were able to get over a couple of hours, that's just the flow and effect from that when you're already up against a good pack, is that the other players are going to struggle as well to maintain it. Especially the smaller men, the Salmons and the Mans are got to work harder because they're facing more energy. It's all about energy, but you don't fucking look at that, do you? I'm talking about the critics here. Look at the energy flow. Not kumbaya bullshit, which I do believe in, by the way, but anyway. The fucking energy of tackling a big man with 3 men into a tackle. If one of your men isn't putting in the normal fucking force that they do, the other 2 blokes who are copping that extra energy, right? They're getting more from the impact, which takes from them as well. This is the sort of shit that they look at. How fast people are running, how much distance they go, how intense their collisions are. All this sort of stuff is measured. And when that's down, for 1 or 2 players, it can have a massive butterfly effect, if you want to use that word. These aren't excuses. They're just part of what happens in rugby league. There's teams that we dominate and beat because they've had a player that, like James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors, nowhere near his best last week. He's out there giving it his all, but guess what? He wasn't. It was making it harder on the rest of his forwards because he wasn't at his best, is what I'm saying. You bring Mitch Barnett into that, they go a lot better because they get to share. They've got someone with really good energy levels, plays long minutes, hits hard, works hard, tackles hard, runs hard. That these things are all pertinent to what happens in a game. And our system is about controlling possession, getting field position. And when we do that, having a player like Lachlan Galvin has proven to get us more results and more points off the back of that red zone domination and stuff. They had the red zone domination in this game, the Roosters. Why? Because we marched them upfield with penalties. It's as simple as that. If we want to blame, we want to say, oh, Nari Chihuahua didn't jump 3 times. Okay. Well, look, Brian, if he was supposed to jump and didn't, he'll get dropped. I'll 100% agree then. If he gets dropped, it'll be because he's either injured, there's someone else coming in that they really want to play, or it's because he didn't jump when he was supposed to. But I can tell you now, even listening to the Roosters coach, the Dogs put themselves in a position, they crowded the areas, they knew what was coming, and they tried to stop it, and they couldn't. We move on. Thank you. There's not much any player can do against Tupu. Montoya back from his circumcision. Yeah, I saw that, Dreg. I saw that stuff. So what, Brian? He got out jumped. He got out work for the ball. Same result. Like, you don't get to pick and choose who should get dropped and who shouldn't because you don't like the player or you don't think they're that good. Sorry, mate. 100% say it. Our forwards, they were not able to lay a platform on the couple with all the errors and penalties. Yep, it was the errors and penalties which made it worse. And as I said, if there are a couple of players that aren't in that contact as heavily or aren't, really forcing that situation, both with and without the ball, that just has an effect on everything else. And that's why people start to give away more penalties because they can't get up in time. They're getting outworked and getting out fatigued by the player they're putting on the ground. Right? So that's where the Roosters were better. The way they tried to get up and play the ball obviously made it look like we were holding them down the ruck. I thought the flop penalties were ridiculous, especially the one where they had the legs around kick out, because it looked like he skipped out of the tackle and was about to get up. It was a complete accident. They could have just said, "Sorry, yeah, look, it would have been play on." Okay, kick out barely had him. I don't know if he was going to play the ball or run away. Like, I can see it though. Like, against the rules of the game, we breached it. But those scenarios are why we lost. It's pretty simple. We win. We don't. 5 less penalties in that match. If it's 5 all, 6 agains are the same, the scoreboard changes. Because what did they score? They isolated Galvin. Now that actual point with Galvin, and it's funny listening to the media talking about how Galvin's defence was so good early in that game. He was still copping post contact because that's just a physical deficiency he's got at the moment in his progress and his growth. Whereas Toby's solid as fuck, and Toby hits with the shoulder and can put people down. And I think Toby hangs on there and a little bit longer. The progression isn't as quick. And look, Lockie tried as hard as he could, but that scenario is something we're going to cop for a little bit. And it only happens if we don't control possession and we play really bad rugby league and really undisciplined rugby league. And that's what happened. So all these things are due to how we managed the middle, and we couldn't manage it without giving away penalties. And that's the end of the story. Head-eye tackles again. It was a similar story to the Broncos game in round 8. We concede an early try and then everyone loses their heads. But the difference here was we led 6-0 and then they lost their heads. So it's just one of those things. You're not going to beat any side when you're marching them up the field. We had more set distance than they did. I'll tell you why, though, because they got marched into our red zone so often. You can't make much yardage when you're only 20 metres out. So, look, they definitely beat us in the forwards, and that was a tail of the tape. But is it because we're too small? Oh, that's the next stipulation. Teams with big packs who are good teams. Oh, okay. They're a good team when they're big. And they've got a good halfback, got a good this, and they've got a good that. Then it's because we're too small. We will develop players, people. We are developing forwards that can play long minutes. We've had to do that. We've been able to finally buy one that can play long minutes, make tackles. I don't give a shit what you think he's doing at Newcastle. In our system with Serrato, if he doesn't get injured, he is going to be someone who makes his meters, makes his tackles, takes energy from the opposition, and can do it for 2 stints of 25 minutes, both halves. And that is something we really bloody need. And it's worth to us 800 grand. Then you add Max King into that mix. The extra energy he gets because of the energy that Leo Thompson provides. And then maybe you can carry another big man on that bench with Satilli. Is it still Hayes and Curran? Probably not. If Sam Hughes has developed into a player who can play 25 minutes each half, which is what they're aiming for, he can then become a bench player and add energy, right? That's how it works. And for next year, they're going to need another player that can step in and play hooker with Bailey. He needs this time now. 3 more really big games, high intensity expected, a lot on the line. Top 2 spots, top 4 spots, top 8 spots for the 3 sides we play. And Cronulla can still get higher than that. So if all this sort of stuff it just makes these games intense, and that's what Bailey needs. Okay, our club needs that. If we want to be hit the ground running next year, and we want to hit the ground running in every year, I get it. Look, if you've got an opportunity to win a comp, you shouldn't fuck around too much. I get that. I get that point of view, and you can have that point of view, and you probably believe you're proven right if we don't win a final or don't make a grand final or a prelim. I expect we'll get to the finals, and we will be a fucking hard team to beat, whoever we play and whoever plays on that field. That's what I think will happen. I don't like any referees, but it's about how a referee interprets a match. Atkins blew the pee out of the whistle. We got 49 minutes of rugby league in 80. Klein the night before, we get about 62 minutes of rugby league. And that depends how you actually officiate that, right? Just as many points scored. Why? Because he only gives away 7 penalties in the match, not 12, and definitely not 9 to one of the teams. Okay, it suits some sides to have that stop-start stuff, and we've proven to be a side who's not good with that. We did pretty well with the Warriors. I felt we were just so composed in that match. Obviously put a lot of effort into it in the wet. Maybe the guys got ahead of themselves. All this narrative's come out. Oh, the Bulldogs are arrogant. They're entitled. I've read it all. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Where do you get that from? Oh, because they're good mates, and the social medias take some footage of them having a good time and whatever else after they've done their reps. But look, Cam come out and said there's some players who haven't been able to get through training or only just got through the things they wanted them to do. And he said no more than that. He's put them on notice, but it's more for a response. And for the most part, Cameron Serrato gets a response continually. How many times have the doubters like Brian here come out after losses and said we're gone? Come out after wins and said that we've gone. Touchline podcast, fellas, who have a love-hate relationship with. I watch them every week. I support podcasters. You know why? Because they love the Bulldogs. Sometimes they just piss me off the way they go about it. I have no illusions, though, that some people they want to get their dreams in this industry and be influencers, and they know outrage sells, so they get outraged. Good on them. Well done. I just like their funny shit a little bit more. You don't have to jump, Brian. You try getting out there and doing that when you got fucking 6'5" and 114 kilos jumping over you. Good luck, son. There was one moment where he went to do it and just got absolutely creamed out of the way. And Ari Tuala isn't on $1 million, mate. He's on a minimum contract for 2 years. He's here for depth, and he's providing that depth whilst other players are getting ready and prepared. Some being developed, some injured. Brian Tuala is playing against one of the highest try scorers. You can't expect someone who's not particularly good in the air to deal with Daniel Tupou. Honestly, I was actually shocked at the run meters stats after the game. You would have thought the Roosters would have clocked close to 2,000, but they only had 1,300 and we had 1,100. And that's right, because they were marched up the field off penalties. It's quite simple. A couple of our forwards were down. It cost us a match. Simple as that. Everything else flowed on from that, which is why people need to understand how important forwards are. But it's not about being a massive enforcer or the most aggressive forward. It's been having an engine that can, it's like being a marathon runner, but with big muscles, and a bit of size. You've got to be able to go toe-to-toe for a long time and win that energy battle. That's all it is. Right? And there's only a few players in the comp that are capable of doing it for, of continually running the ball twice a set and whatever else, making 40 tackles and, playing 80 minutes sometimes. There's only a few of those players. But from what I see, how many teams have won the comp in the last 10 years with a player like a Tino or a Payne Haas or an Adam Fanua Blake? There you go. You know what they need? They need a really good halfback. They need a really good fullback. They need forwards that just tackle their ass off. They need wingers that can make yardage. Right? First 20 minutes, Dogs on top. The Neros cost us. We lost the middle. It's very simple gratitude. I could have done this review just to make a point in 10 minutes or just in 1 minute, actually. Hey, guys, we were dominating for 20 minutes because we had possession. From that period, we gave away penalty after penalty after penalty. We knocked on time after time, knocked on more. We got under scoreboard pressure, and we lost the game because we lost the middle. End of story. But no, the narrative's got to be about, Galvin and Marnie and Bailey Hayward and Toby Sexton and an Ari Tuala didn't jump. Timmy, Roosters still not guaranteed to finish top 8 either, by the way. No, they're not, buddy. But if they play the way they did against us for the next 3 weeks, they'll make the 8 and they can make the top 6. They can make top 5, I think. Roosters only had 3 line breaks. That's not good for 60% possession majority of the game. Yeah, but it also tells you that they're brought up to our end of the field. So what'd they get? They got the Fahu White's try. They got that one which to me looked like Angus Crichton's hands are right there with Josh Curran's trying to get the ball and knock it forward into the in goal. No one talked about it. No one cared about it in the commentary, because it's all about loving Uncle Nick and Cooper loves his Roosters and so bias. Suarez not the problem in our team. No, he's not, Noah. It's been the problem with all our losses. We make errors, give penalties, lose momentum, and just give up. How do you fix that? They never gave up, bro. I'll never, ever concede they gave up. They kept trying. Burton takes that intercept. They never gave up at all. They just kept getting penalised and kept knocking the ball on because they were fatigued. You make 100 more tackles against a good side, you're not going to win. It's not called giving up. Yeah, I've seen games where I remember a game with the Storm when they beat the Panthers and they made like 150 more tackles. I've seen games like that. Yeah. But for the most part, teams lose by 40. They don't win them games. They get flogged. And how did they flog us? They didn't. They got 5 tries. One was lucky, two from kicks, and one late when we were absolutely busted. We're a fit side, but we've got some players that are really injured, but we're getting near the end of the season. They'll get their little second wins at different times, and if not, we'll bring in a Lipoi Hopoi. We'll bring in Daniel Saluka Fafita. We'll bring in Jack Todd. We're all still playing long minutes in New South Wales Cup and trying to hopefully win a premiership ring with the Bulldogs in NRL. That's what they're all focusing on. Okay? Simple as that. Very simple. Shady Pikachu, 1, 2, 3. Do you know what's going on with the Blake Wilson? Why isn't he playing? Because in my opinion, he's a really good winger. I think we should be playing him, not trying to hate on any of our other wingers. No, look, mate, we've got a lot of Blake Wilson lovers in all things Bulldogs, and I'm one of the guys who likes him a lot. He's been a bit frustrated. I don't really put a huge emphasis on New South Wales Cup form either. When you have a lot of people in and out of the squad, and it's all about teamwork and connection and cohesion, and sometimes it's just harder in those grades to get it as much as you practice hard and work hard and whatever else. and do the reps and get everything done. You got a lot of players that train with the first grade squad, and there's players in Cup who don't, and that all has to come together as well. So it's when it comes down to Blake Wilson, he's leaving the club. He signed with Manly for 2 years, and there was some stuff identified with his defence. And look, in my gut, I think there is a bit of an attitude thing there as well, but that's just in my gut. I've just seen a couple of things in public, actually. I'm not going to mention where. It's not bad or not horrible or anything like that. It just, I've just created my own narrative. That's how easy it is. We all do it. I'm as human as every other fucker out there who just makes shit up in their head. But in my opinion, Blake Wilson has been a bit frustrated and wants to play NRL, and he's done some great things for the Bulldogs in big moments. But he's also had some shockers as well, made a lot of errors, a lot of drop balls. But one thing I will say about him is he's always gone better in the contact than I've ever thought he would. Made more meters than I thought he could make, doing tough yards and all that sort of stuff. And, scored some really wonderful tries as well. Saved some tries. He's not a bad player, but they've moved past him, is all I'm saying. It's just the way it is. But he's continually was named in our top 23 players on the extended bench. So they still kept him there because he's sort of next in line. But they know how good Rinakama is as a finisher and as a yardage winger and that sort of stuff. And they've been wanting to get him into the fold, and he sort of went past Wilson. And RHOR, they bought him for 2 years and had a really high opinion of him in pre-season. He comes with a good rap, and he's experienced. Been playing for many years now. So, and he's a depth player, no doubt about it. And I felt he's done a good job overall. And you don't write someone off because in your perception that they didn't jump. But anyway, less trusted in defence, Shady. There you go. You haven't had one bad kick and yet we still blame him. That's it. There was that shank he did, but that was off second phase player. That happens to people. To some of the best, that happens. And then one went a little bit long. Then there was a ricochet penalty and there was an offside penalty, which was an accidental offside. So I felt he went pretty well until we had no possession, which halves can't do fuck all with that. And then they get into a thing, okay, we need to grind for a bit. It's not like, let's not just play catch up right now. We've got time. We need to grind, and they start grinding. They turn it into Preston, turn it into the centre, turn it into kick out, take a little run themselves. And at times it's like, oh, we could have passed wide there. But it's like, yeah, we will pass there, but we've got to build pressure first. We've got to get them on the rack, under the pump. And unfortunately, then we would give a penalty on the next set. And that's the sort of shit that happened. You haven't had two bad kicks that led to 7 tackle restarts, but one of them was a pressure kick. He's not the problem. Our forwards' errors, penalties was Curran had his worst game. Curran had to play long minutes as well and played 57 minutes to King's 33, which indicates it was hard. I think if you find out the root cause of an individual in the side that wasn't at their best for whatever reason, the flow-on effect just goes from there. You keep going, okay, well, how did they get in that position? Because they got penalties to get up there. Why did they get the penalties? Because we were too slow. We were flopping. We were harshly treated there potentially sometimes as well. Why was that happening? Because we're taking too long to get off the players because we were a bit fatigued. Why were we fatigued? Because we were trying to make up for a deficiency in another player. And that's usually what it comes down to. Sometimes it's players, you get a new guy out there and you get the players around them who are a bit protective of them and work a bit harder to so they're not isolated. And that opens things up in other areas. And teams are aware of that sort of stuff. Like this is a sort of detail they look into. They'll be like, I've noticed when Galvin's playing that Preston and Critter are actually a little bit more, hesitant, for example. Or I'll notice the winger hangs back a bit more here, and that's the sort of stuff that they do. And then they're able to, and really good coaches are able to preempt that stuff as well without seeing it. Like with a debutant, they'll be like, this guy here, he's going to turn in and come in under pressure because he hasn't had the reps with these guys. We're going to test him out here, and we know that these players are going to try and overcompensate. And when they do, we're going to pull their pants down. We do that to teams. They do it to us. It's quite when you read about coaching and understanding that side of the game, that's where they make their bread and butter. As you know, analysing things, and that's where the attack coaches and the defensive coaches also come into their work as well, because they really pinpoint that stuff, and then they take the players aside as individuals, but also collectively at different points. And it's like they get them working on those little intricacies at different times, and that's what the video sessions are for, which they do heaps of that. All this goes into preparing for 180-minute game of rugby league, and sometimes all it takes is a couple of guys to fuck it up. Usually in the middle. If your halfback just starts putting it out on the full 3 times or dropping the ball, sometimes players have bad games. If they do it consistently, then they lose their job. But I haven't seen a Bulldogs player consistently be shit for more than 2 weeks, and most of the time there's an excuse, like they just come back from injury, or they're a bit fresh, they get a bit fatigued. Connor Tracy drops that ball. He couldn't train for 2 weeks. I knew he was going to have a bad miss at some point in the game. Obviously, worst time for it to happen. Down 14-6. Want to get into the game. First kick, and he knocks it on. But that comes down to fatigue, which affects your concentration and affects other things. And with that fitness that he gets from this week of footy and last week's training and footy and this week's training and footy, he'll be better in that regard. The Dogs always get dominated when the other side has 60% possession. Look at all games we got flogged. The possession is always offside. Yeah, but their outcomes, Abraha. Okay, but it's the truth. You don't hold the ball, you lose. And I think if you go to every team that loses, there's only very few that win with less possession. And we've been flogged usually because the point was made that the boys give up. We don't give up. We keep trying. We keep putting in the effort. We keep saying one more set, that they expect to win even in that situation. And that expends more energy, and then it just compiles on itself, and then you get smashed even more and lose more possession. Sometimes if you were to, if you're playing to keep your for and against intact, you might strip it back and play a bit negatively and not try to win. But that's not in our boys. And I don't think it's in any team really, but there's ways of doing that too. So that's far to see how Sammy gets to start before Todd at 13, respectively, he gives much more impact. So Todd, did you see last time he came off the bench? He made 3 tackles. And yeah. 3 tackles and I think, no, 3 tackles, 4 tackles and 3 hit-ups. And the last hit-up, he's basically done. That was against the Cowboys, I think. I think he might have played that game. Jack Todd is coming along quite nicely, but it's all about fitness, mate. And Salmon was also come back from a long injury. It wasn't his best game either, but he's there for a specific role. Jack Todd doesn't play that role. And when he does play that role, maybe he probably takes over that spot. There's no rush with Jack, but he's had a lot of consistent injuries, especially with his broken arms, which have held him back. And that's why he's not at peak performance. He's getting there, but really he was at a higher level last year before, when he was about to debut, when he broke his arm, than he's been at this year. And that's because he just had a stop-start issues with injuries. When he is fit, firing and ready, he will come in and he will progress, and some players will make way. And that might be Jamin Salmon. It might be Kurt Mann. It might be Jacob Preston. You don't know. Might be Satili Tupanua. Might be Josh Curran. Might be Max King. Okay? We want to sit there and pick one player. I don't see how Salmon... A lot of people think the same way because he's not flash. He's not overly fast. He's not big. Someone was even saying, oh, yeah, he doesn't get in there. He comes in as the third player and drags people back. Good. That's his role. His communication in defence is really good. How many times have we had our, just blatant line breaks made since Salmon's come back into the squad? How many line breaks have just been coming through our defensive line while he's been on the field? Tell me. Even in the West game, most of their stuff was opportune. Repeat sets in our end to get their first try. And then they basically got like 2 intercepts almost off spilt balls. One off a long kick where our players went the wrong way, and the other one off a lost ball. Then they got a forward pass in the second half. Like, the Roosters, where were they breaking through our defensive line? 3 line breaks. Salmon is there because of the way he works as a teammate to defend. Jack Todd isn't at that level. And when you watch he's not doing that. He doesn't play that role yet. Not to say that he can't. I think he could be a really good lock and do it both sides of the ball eventually. But you've got to understand this shit. Right? Everyone thinks if we put the shiny toy in each position, it works out. It's never worked out. There's lots of people, look, I've watched the Storm and watched players like Josh King and Trent Liero and gone, they're not much chop. Games where they lost, they were losing to the good sides, to the Penrith. I was always making top 4, whatever, but never really thought, oh, these guys are going to win the comp. But with this sort of new breed that they've had as their enforcers, but gradually they just stick with these guys. They get better and better and better, and they keep working hard. And they do their roles, they do their jobs. And it doesn't always look flashy, and opposition fans look at them and go, yeah, they're not much chop. You look at that Liero now, he's making match-saving plays fucking multiple times per match. And he did it for Queensland, right? He's confident, he's strong. He's got great experience. Now, that's just my perception of him. I looked at Coates and thought, oh, he's a bit fragile for a long time. Look at him now. If the coaches drop these guys because they had a few bad matches, we're in a period where we're, as I said, back in 2020, 21, 3 wins, 7 wins, 22, 7 wins, 23, 13 wins in 24, already at 15 wins in 25. Yet still our fans think, oh, we should be winning the comp. We're great. And then we lose a game and it goes back the other way. Oh, can't see us winning another game. The season's done. Oh, well, we've improved and we keep improving, and winning comps is fucking hard. I want to win as much as everyone else does. But I understand you got a lot of other clubs and teams and refs and whatever else that think differently to us winning the comp. To get it done is tough. And that doesn't mean, oh, yeah, support mediocrity. It means for some players, it's keeping them in the squad and letting them get better until they're at a level where, they're good enough for us to win a comp. For others, and for youngsters we're developing that are going to come into important positions to help us win a comp eventually. And hopefully not have injuries. Could take 10 years. Could take 2. Could take a few weeks to win a comp. I don't know. I'm fucking going to back them, and I hope they bloody win every game. And I'm backing them this week to get in there and make us proud. But understand, when a couple of players are down, your whole system falls apart. It's proven across the board. And the best clubs with the best coaches have the best systems, the best, trainers, the best ways of overcoming that stuff. And they've got the best depth. And on paper, our depth isn't as good as these other clubs, and we just have to accept that. As I said, no one was talking about Kurt Mann, Max King, Jacob Preston, Jacob Carraz. No one said that any of those players were going to be picked in the Origin squad in 2025. No one. I've talked about Carraz for about 3 years, and there's been a few others. But anyway, and we knew Jacob Preston would get there eventually. But before he came on the scene, no one had any idea of it. He's been developed into that, and it's taken time to get to that level, just like it's going to take time to get other players to that level. There's no excuse here. This is just the reality you have to accept. I think we will shock everyone this weekend. That's what I want to hear, doggies. That's what I want to hear. Curran has become a liability. Captain Ivis. He's had a couple of... Look, I would say his last few weeks haven't been his best. I would agree with saying to that. And it'll be up to Curran to fix. It's been a bit frustrating for him too. But the penalties, the head highs, the suspensions. I thought he was hard done by with the trial one, and I thought he couldn't do enough for that. I thought one of his head highs against the Broncos, couldn't do nothing about that. He's really tried hard to fix it. But yeah, he tries so hard. And he's a player that, you watch him in those Indigenous matches, plays 80 minutes and just absolutely does not stop trying to win. And that's why we love him. But at a point, your body struggles to manage that long term. And it's hard when you're playing prop and you're not the biggest prop out there. But guess what? He's still got more to offer. Maybe Curran makes way for Satilli. Maybe it'll be Harry Hayes. Maybe it'll be Hughes or King. I don't know. Whoever makes way for Satilli won't be happy, and they'll need to prove to the coaches why they need to get picked again. And I'll leave that to the coaches. They know. From a perception point of view, though, I understand that point of view around Curran because it's something that I haven't been able to escape. There could be other stuff going on behind the scenes. and inevitably there is. Maybe he wants an upgrade and can't get one. Not everything comes out. It only comes out if the managers want it to. Maybe he thinks, I might not have a future here, and I want one. That can affect players, but that's business as usual. I looked at him with that Sony challenge. He looked happy as Larry, So sometimes it just comes down to you're just not hitting the markers you want to hit in the game. He might be smashing it in training. He might not be the player that Serrato is talking about, or any of the players he's talking about. So if someone else gets dropped and he plays, just accept that the coach thinks that his efforts and some of the other stuff he's done has been good enough to give him another chance. And he's just potentially execution's been poor on a few things. But yeah, look, I think some of the energy and some of the runs hasn't been there. He never stops working. He never stops tackling. He's a really good contributor to our team and our game, and hopefully he gets another opportunity to rectify or change that perception. Karen has been very inconsistent all season. I've been torn for saying that. He's had a few good games, but always gives a penalty away, drops the ball, makes errors. Every player's had a bad day. Sometimes the Dogs play great. Sometimes they play shit. Yeah. Playing shit days usually starts with one or two, and forwards have the biggest impact on us. Excellent analysis of last Friday night's game. Great job. Thanks, mate. Do you think there are players that could be rested now and bring in the likes of Jack Underhill, Daniel Sleep-Fifita based on what Sarah said in the press conference? I don't know if Underhill's going to come in and debut this year. I've been watching him in Cup. Definitely comes out with great intent. Just goes as hard as he can, and it's not always easy, right? But I don't know if he's quite there yet at the moment. I think there's been a bit of a flat spot with some injury, and hasn't been the easiest progress from that point. And I don't think he played on the weekend, from what I could see. And Luke Smith, haven't seen him since a head knock he got a few weeks ago. How Dogs turn it around? There's a legitimate chance we could lose third or fourth going into the finals. How do we turn it around, bro? The coach understands who's getting through training. The boys understand where their strengths and weaknesses are. They get out there in the middle and they work their ass off with and without the footy, minimise their errors, minimise the penalties, and allow our players, our backline to do their job from that point. And that's what it comes down to. The game doesn't change much. It's similar for every team. As far as their one-on-one battles, run first, set it up, pass later. And I'm sure that Serrato will have something ready for Bellamy, and I'm sure Bellamy will utilise Bellamy's. He'll utilise the strengths of his side as they always do. It's very regimented, same as Serrato. Build pressure, then unleash, and they've got so many ways of doing that, and they can do it through dummy half plays and speed around the ruck, and they can do it through forcing errors. They can do it through, the one thing that they don't have, or they haven't really always had, is the great kicking game. But they play it well. They manage to make a lot of kicks competition with their big wingers to put pressure on the opposition defence that way, which stops any sort of kick return meters. And then they work hard to reduce teams' meters as well, sort of like we do. And we come up against teams with players that can kick the ball long. It's always something we're going to work harder at. Jonah Pezze kicks a bit longer than Hughes, and yeah. You see any changes for the Storm game? Look, I think Satelli comes in. I've got a feeling that Josh Curran will drop out. That's just a feeling. I had a feeling that Max King might be withdrawn due to some sort of injury, but I haven't heard anything coming out. No whispers from the couple of people that I speak to. Nor would they want to give whispers at this time of the year. You don't want to be leaking shit, no matter what, to friends, no one. You've got, I think if Satelli's ready, he comes in, and I think he's one to come out. Look, I've got no problem bringing a Jake Turpin in either. Busts his ass off in defence, and he puts big boys down. Like, he's as solid as a fucking rock. And people will say that's stupid, but even Serrato mentioned his name the other day in the press conference. And Lipboy Hotboy, been very happy with him and his progress. And he can play long minutes. He's played 80 minutes a few times in games in New South Wales Cup. Daniel Sluka for feeder. I like Daniel. I always have. I feel he could be an enforcer type, but it's just been able to get his minutes up, and that's been the issue. And they've sort of gone with Hughes in that regard. I don't think they drop Marnie like people are saying needs to happen. He come on and played 30 minutes for us the other day and tried his heart out, made plenty of tackles and whatever else. Yeah, I don't think dropping him's key. But if they drop him, they've got to bring Turpin in, is what I'm saying. You don't replace him for... You could probably drop Marnie for Moran. But I'm keeping Marnie for insurance. Unless there's something wrong with his attitude, unless he's sort of clocking off and clocking out, then I'd have no issues. But I don't think that's the case at all. And no one said that or indicated that. Or that's just a question. If that was to happen, see you later, sort of thing. Here's a stat. Every time we've been underdogs, we've won. Sharks were favourites and Canberra were favourites. Storm are favourites the next week. And Panthers would be favourites too. Fuck, I love you, Michael. Let's go. Let's get that out there. I'm going to do that up. I'm going to post it everywhere. Timmy loves that. G'day, Sam Bardur. Welcome. Melbourne going to play the same game again against the Dogs. We need to fix that issue with the high ball try. Sam, how do they get the high ball tries, though? For that to happen, we have to be deficient in the middle. And there's no expectation that we're going to be deficient in the middle. That's what happened on the weekend. There was some problem with a player or two, and that just affected everything else, which gave them opportunities. Really, with the amount of possession they had and the amount of field position they had, they could have scored shitloads of tries, but they didn't. We try hard. Xavier Coates put 2 on the Panthers. He could put 2 on us, but guess what? That's a consequence of them getting opportunities. If we reduce their opportunities and create and win the possession game and have more for ourselves, we can score enough points to beat them. Okay? So we're not going to fix... You can't... With the way the rules are, if they get their kicks in the right spot and they get that player into that area, we don't have the player that can compete in the air for that. We just don't. So that's basically against every team in the comp. Melbourne have that advantage. Against the Roosters, you get Xavier Coates and they get that Will Warburg back on the other side. And then against the Roosters, you've got Tupou and Marky Mark. Then you've got a really fucking good contest. We've got a couple of young wingers coming through. Jope Ruck scored 20 tries this season in Jersey Flegg on the wing. He looks to be about 6'4" or 5. He's coming through nicely. Another big Fijian, I think. Knox Corvus, welcome. Good to see you, mate. Too much muscle in the end from the Roosters, too much indecision and poor execution from us. We need to do better. Yeah. I've talked about it a lot, mate. Too much muscle, more so a lack of muscle for us in a couple of players, which just, as I said, transcends onto everything else. As far as our execution, we didn't really get a chance to execute much. We were trying to build pressure. Our halves play their part in that role, and then when it's time to get the game on, because you've won the possession battle or at least got a 50-50, you work them down. And we've done that in most of our games. When we win possession, we don't lose. We got flogged because we gave away penalties. And as I said, that's a product of one or two players being beaten to the punch a little bit, not being fast enough, not having enough energy to get up, and then the other players feeling the effects of that lack of energy, and so on. Very fucking, it comes down to biology. But I don't think our halves and our backs really could do much. But look, Carraz wasn't making his normal sort of runs. He was down a bit. Normally he's up to that challenge and beats that, but they beat Carraz. He lost in those battles. Koala couldn't win most of those battles. Crichton does his thing at the normal rate. I felt Cherry in that first, he ran with really good aggression, Bronson Cherry, for the whole match. Had that one error at the end. But he was definitely our best back in that game. Sadly, I can't make it to the game this week unless I start walking to Melbourne. You signed up with the Perth Bears, did you? Oh, you should. That way you can get a cheap, you can go watch rugby league and get a cheap game. Hopefully the Bulldogs go and play over there. We need to control high ball against self-controlled possession in our discipline. Pretty simple, Drake. How you going, Joby? Good to see you, brother. Nah. Sorry, my friend. Galvin's body language, especially facial reads, lost worried. I tell you now, Galvin hasn't got a drama at all about being lost or worried. See, these are the... I know you're a good bloke or good chick. I don't know if you're male or female. I couldn't tell. But whoever you are, you seem mostly positive most of the time. But that narrative you're creating, that's in your head. That's got nothing to do with anything. I don't care if you're fucking... For a job, you read people's faces and do that shit full time as a professional. Couldn't give a shit. Galvin is a competitor. He wants to win. When we're losing, he is worried. He doesn't want to lose. He wasn't fragile on the weekend. He's 20 years old. He got picked out of the line. We didn't get numbers into the tackle. Big prop ran over him. Simple. That's going to happen. He gets another 10 kilos on the body mass. That's less likely to happen. So, yeah, I'm sorry if I've come across as arrogant. I will sometimes. But, yeah, I don't accept that for 1 minute. It's these, I've got a mate who I think's a top bloke, right? Says the same sort of shit every time we lose. Oh, it's too much pressure. Yeah, fucking great. Humans are under pressure all the time. I'm under more pressure in my life. But guess what? It don't fucking matter. He's a competitor. He wants to win. If he's got body language, so what? Reed has body language when he makes it. You kick the ball long, you feel fucking shit about it. Daly Cherry Evans feels shit when he kicks it long and does stuff. That's it. Comes with maturity, though, that you're able to, brush it off. Nathan Cleary used to be exactly like that. He used to sit there and have a bit of a fucking self-carry on because he made a mistake, because he doesn't expect to make mistakes because he practiced these things obsessively. And he's been doing it since he was a kid. And they brought James Maloney to the club. That's why Phil Gould brought him there. So he could teach Lullaby and Nathan Cleary that it's okay to fucking make a mistake. If you made the right choice, you didn't execute, oh, well, do it again. That's why, because James Maloney had the Dory the fish brain. He used to forget about his mistakes and try again. And he'd be the one cheering when they made the, when they won. Grand final winner at multiple clubs. Competitive kids who love to win and expect to win and want to win don't like losing. And that's good. I'd rather that. But yeah, that's just your perception. That's your brain. That's your eyes. It doesn't read well for you. Cool. And there are other people who agree with you too. Don't get me wrong. There are other people who see that stuff. But I think you'll find there was when we're losing, most people aren't fucking happy about it. And some are so dirty they don't even want to shake other opposition hands. Most of the time when the game's over, it's all smiles and catching up with old friends. Discipline will be there against Melbourne, just worried about the high ball tries. Mohammed, he is a weapon. Yeah, Marnie needs to start, but guess what? We're not starting him, brother. And I'll tell you why. Because it's more important to get these minutes into Bailey Hayward for our long-term future. The amount of development he gets in this scenario is so valuable for what we want to do as a club over the next 3 years. And I get your frustration. It should be about now and what's going to win the game now. No. Does it make us? Is Marnie better for us at? Look, I'm more confident when Marnie goes out there, yeah, and absorbs the pressure and puts people on their ass and gets that ball on the advantage line to the halves when they're doing their stuff and doing their thing. 100%. I get it. But Bailey Hayward needs that time, and he's got other strengths and abilities which do even up the ledger a little bit, which doesn't make it it can be a deficiency if we don't do certain things as well as we need to. But if we follow our game plan and our process, it's not a drama. And that's what it's about for Serrato. That's what it's about for Ivan Cleary at the Panthers. It's what it's about for Robinson and for all these good coaches, that you play your football, your game, your strategy, and you're constantly developing the club and making the right moves for the benefit of the club. And for us, we need to keep improving. We're not the finished product. I've said it the whole season. I get lost in it I've seen how well they've done in some games, but I've always felt we have never been perfect or close to it. Even in games we've won by 30 points. And for me, that's because there are deficiencies. We have more deficiencies than some of our opposition sides, even some of the sides we've been beating. The difference is that we have the right coaches and the right mentalities in place. When that mentality goes missing, when it becomes impatient, that's been a problem for us through that origin period and through just post that as well. Impatience. Impatience was a big problem in 23. It was a problem last year as well at different times. I felt that we'd overcome that after the Warriors match, and definitely were very patient in the Manly match, patient in the Parramatta match. Okay? But the mentality of last week didn't even come into it because we were deficient in a couple of our middles in what they did. And if we don't fix that, nothing's going to change this week or next week or any week. Is that because we're too small? No. Max King's averaging 145 metres a game. That only gets 40. That's not because the Roosters were impenetrable and too great. that's because there was something going on. Okay? And that's all. That's what we need to focus on. Why it happened, not the outcomes of whatever, Rugby League Therapy Podcast. I love that name. Bring back Bailey Biondi-Odo, number 14, 2026, if he's not too busy in French second grade rugby league. I'll tell you what, I love Bailey Biondi-Odo. And he could have been anything before he got that hip drop on him. And I felt he was sort of scapegoat a little bit by Barrett, trying to keep his job and stressing about trying to make the Bulldogs fans happy and rah, 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 rah. He stuck to his guns with a couple of things. I think they could have developed Bailey. And the fact that he didn't give him a chance to even influence anything off the bench at all really pissed me off. So you just hit a sore point. Thank you. I love Bailey Biondi-Odo, and I think he could have been an NRL player. And I don't think it's 100% his fault as to why he's not in the NRL team for any side. But I'm sure he wasn't perfect, if that makes sense. Good forbid we lose 3, we could drop to 7th. We could. There's a chance. But guess what? We're still an improved football side. No matter, you can improve and go backwards on the ladder. To me, it's not about points on the day. I rarely worry about the scoreboard, only for, if it means the difference between getting a home final or not and stuff like that. But I look at how we play. And for me, how we played on the weekend was a consequence of a couple of players that really struggled in the middle. And if we look at it like that, I watched the Penrith game. I felt the way we played was great. I felt we pulled the trigger too early in order to start punishing the Panthers when we led. I felt the coach, he saw something in the Panthers' defence that made him think we're about to run over them. And we then spent the next 10, 15 minutes trying to get back what we'd lost, and also lost the lead in the process, and then had chances at the end to win the match. And that was good for me in that last bit, that we were able to fix our mentality and do it. And that's what I talk about. How do we go about in our performance? You look at our stats in that Roosters game, they're pathetic. But then you go, how the fuck did we only lose by 20? Well, because they're a pretty gutsy little team, our Bulldogs. And in spite of appearing to be absolutely dominated, we made 100 more tackles, conceded 200 more metres. That's it. They didn't bust us open. They got 3 line breaks. As I said, a couple of players, too many penalties, too much easy field position for those Roosters, and end of story. Joel Kane said he prefers Crichton marking the high balls instead of Tuala. I tend to agree with him. We've seen Crichton jump high to catch Burton's bombs. It can be done. Yeah, but at what cost? What do they just swap around, do they? Jumping off the back foot? Trust me, if it was that simple and that easy, it'd be done. Crichton's not 100%, guys. It's not an excuse. It's just a fact. Or would have played fullback in its entire role if he could have, but he can't. I don't care what Joel. I don't mind Sugar. I listen to SEN every fucking day, and I listen to him and fucking Joel and Fletch, right? Joel says things. Joel doesn't. He's not across the Bulldogs. He's got no fucking care to dig deep on anything. He looks at stats and he looks at things on that surface level. And look, you can agree with him. He might be right. But there's reasons for what we do. And they practice to defend that play. And they were unsuccessful a couple of times. These things happen. Should Jeffro come in on the right wing, he'd be under pressure from Coates. G'day Bulldogs 1951. Jeffro plays left wing, which is why they've always put him on the left, even though he's been named at right wing a couple of times. He plays left. And so he wouldn't be on Coates. And Coates would out-jump Jeffro at this stage. You see how high he's getting off the ground, Coates? Like he could play AFL. He can get that high. You can't do shit when you're retreating and you're trying to defend. You can't match it. You literally got to run back and take a run up and do a run and leap for it. You just don't have the time to do it. Because if you run back, they're just going to run the ball then and score. It just makes me laugh. Crichton is nursing a shoulder injury. Others need to step up. He can't do it all. That's it. And that's what they do with Crichton. They keep him in and they bring him in and out, in and out. And it's part of our success too, because other people do their roles, do their jobs. And that's why we've won quite a few games when he hasn't played, because it comes down to that. They're confident in their roles and their jobs because he doesn't try and do anyone else's job or anyone else's role. But he shows if we, Galvin gets repeat sets, Hayward turns him around, Burton's able to save a couple of times when we couldn't get out of our end. We then start to win the possession. They start to get tired. They make a mistake. We get a couple of repeat sets. Crichton comes in and plays like the fullback. Easy try. But, yeah, people seem to think that they can just do that after they've then, had probably 5 sets to the opposition's 15 in the next 30 minutes. They expect that when we get the ball up there, we're going to be able to just do it again. No. The opposition's got all that fucking energy to defend with. And they're able just to beat you to the punch on everything, just hold you that little bit longer. You're tired. Your ball work doesn't go to where it's supposed to go exactly. All these things happen as the game goes on and on. Earlier in a game, when you dominate, you can knock some things out. And if you keep the possession in your favour, you generally are able to take advantage of that. And we have, as a club and as a team, for the last couple of seasons. And when we have those deficiencies in the middle, it affects everything else. But look, I thought the West game was a weird game. Stop, start. When they stop-start games, we make lots of errors, a lot of rain. This whole period since Galvin's been there has been origin period and then this rebuild into this final phase. And I think we've done pretty well, to be honest. And even against the Roosters, I think if they're playing any other side and given that much leg up, they put 50 on them. Tedesco's breaking through, making line breaks willy-nilly. Just didn't, and that shows we are a good team. We're hard to beat, and we were still hard to beat. But we made it a lot easier for them with what we did or what we couldn't do in the middle. I just think we don't have the quality this year to go all the way. I generally think we are one big forward short. Leo Thompson also overrated. I'd have White over him all day. But we can't buy Nafahu White, mate. He wasn't on the market. Hope you're well, Tian. And this whole thing is that, as I said, we don't have the player. That's what I always said. We're just deficient in a couple of areas. And when you're depth tested, it can affect things badly. But I think we've done remarkable. This is what I mean. We've done so well to be on 15 wins in the top 4. Only need one more win to make the top 4, by the way. And one more win's likely to get us 3rd position as well while we're at it. So it's like great season. And when you've got a player like Leo Thompson, he's not overrated at all, mate. What he's going to be for us is a player that hits the ball up hard, takes energy out of the opposition and defence. He'll get driven a couple of times and he'll get smashed by a couple of blokes too. It's happened to him. He's more seasoned than he ever was. He's getting, he's tough. He's got a great mindset, a good attitude. He's got a bit of skill work too, which he doesn't really show too much of it too often. Set up a couple of good tries this year, actually. And he's also plays long minutes. And that's just what we need. We just need players that have got a good mentality, that have got that strength, that they're a man in the middle and they can play long minutes. And unfortunately, the players that can play the long minutes for us have been edge back rowers. And they've showed a lot of heart and they've done a great job. But teams that have more of those hardened individuals that can play long minutes are going to be harder to beat, no doubt. But one of the big advantages we have is Matt Burton. And people keep forgetting that. If you got someone who can get you out of trouble a lot of the time, you only need forwards who can defend their ass off and make enough meters. And our back line does it, they do it the majority of the time. But in this game against the Roosters, against their full strength squad, we just had a couple of blokes that just weren't up to it. And that's not because they were never up to it. This is the other fucking thing that needs to get through people's heads. And I say this with passion. Don't fucking write a player off just because he's had a bad game. I know most people don't, but everyone acts like, and you'll hear it from opposition fans, which I'm cool with. Oh, Max King, he's just overrated anyway. He's sitting there coming up against props that are bigger than him and overpowering them, playing better than him. Our back three setting things up, which they didn't do on the weekend. These sorts of things are imperative. And when that doesn't happen, it's going to affect our whole team. You need to have that player. Now, that's obviously the advantage of having that, instead of a Josh Curran, you've got maybe a Leo Thompson or a Max King on the bench at the level that they're at, right? Because if one of those guys drops out or gets injured or gets a head knock, you're able to easily replace them. But as it turned out on the weekend, not only was Max down a little bit, Sam sort of on the rise, not quite there, but getting better. Josh, who played the longest minutes of any forward out there in the middle, made too many penalties as well and too many mistakes. So, he still tried hard though. He just was not at the level he was last year when he filled in for King, for example, when King got injured. It busted Josh though, trying to step up and do that. He got rather injured from it. And yeah, look, we've had to develop these players. We're developing juniors that'll be able to do this. We've had to take the long path to it. And the fact that this coach has been able to get players and assemble players that aren't huge, that don't have, that grounding is remarkable. And they're focused on playing players who can play long minutes with big hearts, with good defensive techniques, and have, for the most part, pretty good leg speed. And that is a winning formula, and it can beat any side. We write our teams off too easily. Yes, it's nicer to have that bigger guy. Yeah, Nafahu might be better than Leo Thompson, but he's in a better team. And the team is better partially because of him, yes, but he's got so many partners in crime. Leo Thompson's been one out for that. Like Saifidi hardly gets to play because he's always injured. They've brought like a second rower into their front row. I forgot his name already, but they've been relying on these other young fellas to come through that have sort of been on the edge for ages. But, Jack Hetherington never playing, always injured. Look, he has no support. So it's hard. You get two in there doing a 1-2 punch, they're going to make big meters together. And they're going to play long minutes. And then the energy that they've taken out of the opposition is even more, which means your bench comes on and just goes bang. What do you think Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris work so well? Their stats weren't that good. They'd 119 metres a game, 99 metres for Moses to make 35 tackles each a game, play about 50 minutes each. They weren't the stats leaders in their club. In the competition. Nowhere near it. But they play long minutes. They take energy out of the opposition team. And then Spencer Leniu come on and go bang, bang, bang. And he sort of had to learn that, hey, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. Because coming on after Jared Warrior-Hargraves and Lindsay Collins not quite getting the same amount of impact, even though they're two really great players. See, I don't think that the Dogs can do it if they were consistent enough. I don't think that the Dogs can do it if they are consistent enough. I think we're genuine pretenders. But here we go. I think if we drop Salmon, start Man, with Tilly comes back, would be a good difference. Maybe have Fafita instead of Reed. Fafita. Tian. Kurt Mann is a fantastic bench player. You only start him if you don't have a better option. And for some games, you might start him because you want to start fast. But do you think Kurt Mann nails blokes the same way when he starts? I can tell you now he doesn't. When he comes on and starts nailing them, yes. Or if we're already running downhill and getting possession, he'll start nailing them. But when it's energy equal against a good side, you don't want Man starting. You want him to come on after we've laid a platform and set it up. Or if we haven't done that, you want him to come on and be able to, make his mark. And he touches the ball a lot. Everyone reverts to Salmon, and I get it, but Salmon's playing a role, mate, and he does his role well, or he wouldn't be in the side. It's got nothing to do with because the coach has some ego he's got to protect. No. They know what they're fucking doing, and they do it. I don't care what people think. Oh, he doesn't. Yeah, Kurt Mann is he's more critical to our attack, and he's more critical to that period of the game that he plays. But starting isn't going to change the flavour of the game. In fact, I've seen it plenty of times where it hasn't. And since Origin, Man hasn't been as good or as consistent, but he's still been important. And if we're going to win the comp or win some semi-finals, we need Kurt Mann at his best. Coming off the bench during that period is imperative to have a Kurt Mann there. Saluka Fafita instead of Reed. Well, if Bailey Hayward goes down, how well do you think the service of Kurt Mann is? And who plays that lock link role then? You got to think about that. Our whole structure is based on a certain way to play. And yeah, they're not just gonna. We don't just put, oh yeah, we need big men. An extra big man achieves nothing unless they can play long minutes and do their thing. And we don't have anyone who can do it. Trust me, they could have done it plenty of times where there was Sam Hughes available, Daniel Saluk feeder, and we're missing, players like Satilli and Josh Curran and stuff. They went and picked Harry Hayes. They picked Curtis Moran, and Jack Todd got a run on one of those games as well, or a couple of those games. They still kept Bailey Hayward and Jamin Salmon when he's there, and they're going to always do it. If Salmon was out injured, they had Mann, they had Hayward, right, and they brought in another young fella. They brought in Galvin because it all sort of lined up. Could have Moran do that, and he can play a bit of that, but he doesn't do it too often, sort of playing that link role. But he can do it. I just think there's patterns to how we play, and there's a way we play. They're not just going to go and change the system. So for me, we're just wasting our breath. Play this player and play that player. If Reed's not starting, get rid of him. Yeah, I think we basically play with 3 locks and 2 2 middle guys. But if they wanted to, they could easily just play with 3 bench players. A lot of the time, if they've had that extra forward there, and it's only ever been like a Curtis Moran, they'd play Hayward, they'd play Mann and Salmon, and then they would just play Hayes or Curran, right? And then if Moran was there, he'd only get like 12 minutes. Because if we're missing Curran to suspension or injury, and there was only Harry there, or if Harry had to start because King was playing Origin or whatever, these sort of things are right in front of our eyes. You can go through all the team lists, you can see, and we won 15 games with the same structure. But we lose to the Roosters, and there's genuine reasons why we lost, because of a couple of players in the middle failed. It wasn't because they were going to fail because they're not good enough and that the other team was just too good for those 2 individuals. Maybe on that day, but not as a whole. King and Curran have proven they can stand up to the best teams at different times, right? Or most sides. You don't win 15 games. I don't give a fuck who it was against. Every team's got big players in it and big forwards. And you've got to knock them down and get over the top of them. So it's got nothing to do with size. And there's a lot of those sides had Tino in it. What about the Canberra Raiders? Tarpany was in the side. Josh Papali'i, I should say. Don't know why the media have the top 3 teams, Roosters, Melbourne and Penrith. Have you noticed that the Dogs always get negative coverage? Those other 3 teams barely get negative coverage. Well, it comes down to they win. But I think the Roosters should have had a lot of negative coverage. And look, they started to get into them a little bit when they thought they weren't going to make the finals. But even then, they were given a free pass. Oh, it's a rebuilding year. I'm like, how can it be a rebuilding year with 6 Origin players? Fuck off. We're rebuilding still. We're still developing players to play long minutes. We're developing kids to come in that are going to be in our future. We've finally got to buy a player who can play long minutes in the middle. Finally. King couldn't do it when he got here. He can do it now. On the weekend, he couldn't do it. There was something wrong. And look how fucking shit we were. As a result, the effect of that. Every team's players have niggles, so that's a stupid excuse by Sarah. We just are genuine threat. It's a fact. So, we lost to the Roosters. It's not about every team has fucking niggles. You've got if your two main men in the middle fucking lose in a game, lose the contest so badly where they give away 6 penalties between them in a period between when we were winning 6-0 and didn't have a problem to a period where we couldn't get the ball for longer than one set at a time, and then we're, conceding 2 sets for our one. That's like, this is what people say because they want their egos protected so much. They want to be able to say, write the team off. We're just not good enough. And the likelihood is that maybe we aren't good enough yet. It's true. Maybe we're not. But you say that to protect your ego, bro. And you're a champion, right? I've got no problem with you. But I respond to what people say. And because we lost and you feel like shit, you've written the team off. And now you're writing off the coach and what he has said. And people like Brian did come on here and fucking say that Serrato's an arrogant prick for picking players that he doesn't like in the team. We all support our teams the way we want. We see things differently. That's fine. Respect your opinion, but you're fucking wrong. From the context point of view, if he's sitting there saying, I've let players play that haven't trained properly and got through training properly, that's all part of a strategy, mate. A strategy in order to understand, to get in the players' heads and say, look, I'm disappointed. You haven't come and ruled yourself out, and I've trusted you to be able to just get through training and then go out there and do a job, but you didn't do the job. Whoever those players he's been speaking to. And I think it's probably gone against principles and values that he's had in his systems. He's given a bit of leeway and it's backfired, and he's made a point of letting them know. What do you think is going to happen to training this week, mate? Do you think they're going to just make it through? Do you think they're just going to make it through, Tio? They'll fucking go out there and they'll be trying to make sure that they don't succumb to any sort of fucking, weakness at all. And if it kills them and they break down, they're ruled out. Oh, well, we're going to give someone else a go. He didn't say we're going to give him a go because he's played like shit. He put it down to the fact that they haven't trained as effectively as they should, and it's his fault for allowing that to happen. That, to me, is far more fucking powerful. And if you learn about coaching and how to do that sort of stuff, it's essentially hazing people. People come up to you all the time with their ideas and whatever else and their strategies and what they think can work. And it's not going to fucking work, but you let them go ahead with it. And you let them drown. And then you take it out of their hands and then you build trust. And it's like, well, you do it my way because that fucking works. But good on you for trying, but now you got to earn that trust again. And it's before you get to do that again. And when you become a leader in the club, you get to lead in those moments because you're accountable. An accountable person says, I'm fucking playing this week and I'm going to train hard. And if things happen, I'll fucking own it. And I promise you that I will fucking lead the team out and I will play well. And there'll be no excuse. And that's exactly what he's looking for. Because obviously there's a few people there who are struggling a little bit. And that's the other thing. And Max King playing Origin, this is an excuse. This has been talked about for fucking a long time. Teams with Origin players genuinely have a flat spot in their season, usually after Origin, especially new debutants and stuff. We've had a bunch of them. And I've seen a little bit of that. So I'm not worried about Galvin and how he looks. I'm worried about the players that are have progressed to a level where they're considered some of the best in the state, feeling the pinch of all that sort of euphoria and everything else. And I felt the coach has done the right thing. Yeah, I protect this club, but I'm not born yesterday. This coach has made mistakes. Players make mistakes. People make mistakes. But writing them off is to protect your ego, bro. Because you want to fucking sit there and be able to say, I told you so, bro. You know, that's what you want to be able to do. I've done it before myself, but I recognise it in myself. I recognise it in others as well. Protect your own ego. You write the fucking team off. And that way, if they lose, you'll still feel just as shit. But you'll be able to you've preempted the failure. You've prepared yourself for the worst. It's much better than having hope and having your pants pulled down. I get it. But this side has continually fought back after having a bad performance, or a performance where they haven't met their own expectations. And, you know, they might go out there and get flogged. Who fucking knows? Maybe it is a bridge too far. But I don't think that's how they feel. And I don't think our supporters should be fucking trying to protect their own egos by writing the team off. Get behind them. Fucking support them. Back them. Find the worst play. Fucking look at Jamin Salmon and watch him. And fucking love him. Because I can tell you what, his teammates love him. And they feel better when he's there. And we defend better when he's on the field. No doubt about it. We're also on the verge of no longer being the best defensive team in the comp. Yeah, that happened last year too, bro. Doesn't matter. They're just a stat. Are we the best defensive team in the comp? I don't think we are. Never thought we were. The stats will say it. I think we defend in a way which is proven to be, if we play our game and don't give away as many penalties as we've been giving away. We always give away a few, don't worry. But we restrict meters from when they catch the ball to when they kick the ball. Better than any other team in the comp. And that hasn't really changed. Consistently, we're the best at it. That's where we're the best defensively. Are we the best defensively off scrums? No. Are we the best defensively on our right edge? No. On our left edge? No. Are we the best defensively for stop and kick tries? No. There's so many elements to it. I know it seems I'm arguing with every point here, and I do that. But what I'm giving you is other things to fucking think about rather than just writing us off. Because the stats fucking say, oh, we might not be the best defensive team soon. You can be 100 points the best defensive team. Rest your players and give up 50 points in the last two games if you've got a 6-point lead in the minor premiership, and then not be the best defensive team. Best defensive team at the moment, consistently, are Penrith. Were they the best defensive team at the start of the year? No. They had to get their players up to speed. They had to get broken players healed and able to go. Are they the best defensive team when Isaiah O doesn't play? No, they're not. But as a unit, when all their players are there, they're the best defensive side and got the best system. And we're not too far off. We're in that conversation, and we could be the best defensive side. Stats just are an outlier. Scoreboard stats, yeah. You're in front, you win. You're behind, you lose. Yeah, I get it. But it's just, it doesn't mean much. You know, the difference between the Broncos and Penrith wasn't much and proved that in the game that they played in 2023. But Penrith was still the best defensive side. Yeah, but Abraha, those last two games that we played, we'd already qualified for the finals for the first time in 9 years. We had a bunch of players that we rested, and we started two debutants on our edges. And whilst they did great with the ball, they were exploited, and we were exploited a bit in the middle because we were soft. Right? We had a couple of players that had to sort of take their foot off the engine a bit. The game against Manly, we were well on top of them. What cost us? Discipline and a couple of forward passes. And then one moment of brilliance from the opposition. That was the difference between winning and losing. Yeah, technically on our little scoreboard of for and against, that somehow means something. And I get it because I look at it every week too. But think about it. What's the fucking matter? At the end of the day, you can have the best defence and lose both semi-finals. They talk about attack. The 95 Bulldogs were by far not the best attacking side and barely made the finals. They fucking won the grand final because they got it right. They got their system right and their connection right and their discipline right over a little sustained period. And whether we win the minor premiership or fucking finish 8th, it don't matter at semi-final time if you don't get it right for 3 weeks in a row. So for us to get to that point is a whole new level of fucking pain, potentially, and a whole new level of growth and proving people wrong and proving them, our club right. It don't fucking matter. We just have to get there and then go from there. And as long as they've been working to that point and getting miles into the legs of Hayward and Galvin, and they're settled on that combo, and getting miles into the legs of Sam Hughes and getting the team into a position where they're at their best possible level that they can be at come finals time. They're going to pick the side which is the best side to play. No matter what fans think and who should be where and whatever, that'll be the best side that they decide on. And that team will go out there and do their best and hopefully win a final, get us to a prelim, and who knows what the fuck can happen. Okay? That's what it's about. You've got to be able to do it at that time of year. Right now means nothing. Yeah, you want to be getting things happening, but at the same time, if you've qualified for the finals, it's not desperation of we must win those two games like the Cowboys and the Manly game last year. We lost the technical best defensive record because we got scores put on us, and the guys never gave up. They tried the whole game. They could have played to preserve the fucking scoreboard a little bit, and not throwing caution to the wind and whatever else at different points. Yeah, it cost them. I think they went from first to third best defence. So what? They beat Manly. No one cares. I felt we played better, but we lost. Oh well. Now the point is we've got to win a semi-final. If we get there having 3 wins or 3 losses or 1 win and 2 or 2 and 1, does not fucking matter. It matters for the point of securing a home final. Matters from the point of getting 2 bites of the cherry. Obviously, they want to do that. I'm not doubting that. But fuck, man. At the end of the day, this team's going into uncharted territory to try and win a semi-final, hopefully more than that, and to achieve the dreams and goals that they want to achieve for this year and what they want to do for them and their families and their club as much as they want to do it for us. And fuck, we'd love it. But as I said, what happens now has got nothing to do with what happens in 3 weeks' time. And that's a fact. I'm expecting us to win a final. If we lose, I'll be disappointed. And people will go, see, I told you so. Our season was wrecked because of Galvin. They should have kept Sexton and Barney and fuck off. Seriously. Yeah, he did. He did, brother. God, I'm a long way behind your messages. Fucking way behind. I'll go back from the last one. 2014 team was a different beast. Yeah, it was for the whole season. I watched, although Facebook was only 6 years old, I watched pretty much half the fan base suggests that Des should have been sacked. We get to the finals, win some close games for the most part, and went and, pulled Melbourne's pants down in Melbourne, come back and beat Manly in a prelim after we won the next game. And, didn't have our hooker, which cost us big time. And yeah, just defended too much for the first 60 minutes and they ran away with it. End of story. Could have won 2012. One of the most boring grand finals of all time. After having one of the most exciting, entertaining years I've seen from a Bulldogs team all year. Who may not have won the prelim that year if Adam Reynolds didn't get injured for half time, because Souths looked really good before he did his hammy. That's right, David. Never write them off. Who drops out for Tilly? I think Curran might. Curran, Hayes, or Hughes. Or if we've got an injury like King or someone, he comes out. I don't think it'll be Marnie, but it might. It's one of them. It won't be Kurt Mann. Yeah, well, I said that I think they need to give players a break, Amir, and I agree with that, brother. Suara really didn't even contest the ball against Tupou, didn't even get off the ground to try and attempt to catch the ball. As I said, Amir, I don't know if you've come in late, or I've already talked about that enough. But listening to Coach Robinson for the Roosters, the Bulldogs tried to spoil the ball. If you're not going to outleap Daniel Tupou, and if you jump to try and catch the ball, you cannot put your arms around him. He scores anyway. So for perception, I don't give a fuck. He was sitting there trying to spoil the ball and knock it out of his hands and trying to get into a position where he could do that. One of the times he just got bundled out of the way, and the other time, he was there and they got hold of Tupou. Tupou too strong, too good at that stuff, able to score. But they were trying to give themselves the best chance to stop it. The jumping thing, fuck, man. You're someone who can leap to the height of a 6-foot person's shoulders and take a mark like an AFL player who's, way taller than Tuala and Karaz. You just aren't getting him. Crichton's not even getting up there. Right? If they get the kick right and they get the leap right, which they did, no one's stopping those tries. End of story. I think should start Marnie for first 20, let him tackle everything moving and get Hayward under the hooker roll when fatigue starts to see. Yeah, I probably don't disagree. But a lot of people will think that. And if they do that, I'm all for it. And maybe they do that in a semi. What I do expect, though, is they're going to keep putting the burn into Hayward and having him get as much development as he can. Because, starting him at... Honestly, I don't think people understand the benefit to our club for next year and the year after of getting Bailey Hayward, that starting hooker role, in what he's got to what his body's got to go through and what he's got to learn as far as improving his speed, which is a physical liability at the moment, which only comes through strength and repetition and obviously precision and accuracy and preparation and all that sort of shit, which you can do all that at practice, but it's not the same as doing it in the game when you got fucking the biggest bastards, when you got Nafahu White trying to single you out in the line and trying to smash you in the face when you're trying to tackle him. Now, Marnie is great at it, and that's why it's probably the right tactic. But for what Bailey Hayward gets to learn and understand as far as progress, I know it's frustrating, but it's gonna advance him whole lot faster. It's like adding, I think, about 30 games of NRL. That's just my narrative, my thought process, the way I think. Doesn't mean I'm right. You can disagree with it. It might sound like utter shit to you when I say that. Like some of the things I say, they can sound like utter shit. But I've been watching this game a long time. And I think that Bailey Hayward is getting a lot more, and our club's going to get a lot more out of it if they proceed with it for another few weeks. And maybe they just let Reid go. And if they do, if they replace Reid, that's what happens. I'm just going to support them, back them, and expect them to compete and win games. If they don't, oh well, they lost. Suck shit for us. Beautiful, Amir. Didn't get a chance to attack. We had the momentum at the start. Comes in and make an error. That's it. Generally believe with Stilly coming back and Montoya will add more punch to our team. Can ambush Melbourne. So far, our record against top 8 teams is 4 wins, 4 losses, and we're currently only 1 win behind Panthers in terms of top 18 defeats. It's not that bad. It's an improvement. Hayward 13, Marnie and I, man 14. Well, gratitude. Look, it gives Hayward. That's not a bad idea, but Salmon is doing a job that needs to be done for the team. Yes, it gives Hayward that burn and defensive burn that he's got to do, and he's playing that role that he's familiar with at lock. 100%. But does it actually mean it's better for our club? No, because to get to the play, the ball on average four plays per set, sometimes more. Usually the half will get down there for the yardage and do the first 1 or 2. But to do that and get the ball off the deck and get your body doing that at a fucking NRL quality speed, which I don't think it's at yet, right? While copping those hits is a different kettle of fish, and we need it. We don't, Gus isn't going to keep Reid Marnie at the club if you don't want to be there. And that's what happened. So we've had to fast track this. Also excited for the next year when Leo Thompson is here, just another big forward to handle the bigger forward packs. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot tonight. But it's more so he's big and can play long minutes. It's the whole key. How many minutes can they play? And obviously a bit bigger, got some good footwork at times, makes his tackles, does his work. And to us, that's worth a bit of money to be able to not have to spend, $1 million, which have been the ones that have been on the market, and get someone a little bit less on that next tier down that offers us exactly what we need. And they don't have to be the best forward. But he will be a better player with us, that's for sure. Nick, what are your thoughts on Raiders? They're the bottom 2 in attack and are now top 2 in attack. How did they make it such major change in 1 year? Why can't the Bulldogs replicate? Canberra have built their side over a number of years, and they've always been obviously they're a one-town club. They've always had to develop their juniors. That's never changed. And they have a really bunch of seasoned individuals that they've kept in positions. Now, I can tell you, if Sebastian Chris was at the Bulldogs in 2023, our fan base would have said, get rid of him. If Jamal Fogarty came to the Bulldogs in 2021 or 2022, our fan base and our club would have got rid of him. All right? It's all about timing. It's all about where players are and where they develop. They've got Josh Papali, who's been there the whole time. They've had good hookers. They've had good players. They're constantly developing young players. They've had forwards in their system who have been coming in and playing first grade for the last 3 or 4 years, along with their normal starters. They've had a lot of stability in their lineup, especially their forward pack. Now, when you can have that, that's great. You do well. I feel that they've done really well. KO Weeks, can't believe they got him. The Manly people thought KO Weeks was going to be an absolute superstar. Now, he comes in and debuts against the Bulldogs and really asks some questions, causes some issues, but we ended up winning the game. He dropped a couple of bombs and he's really raw. Pretty skinny. Look at him now. He's built up. Xavier Savage, they've been developing him for about 3 or 4 years. And Tomoko's been developing for 3 or 4 years, a New Zealand international. They then get Tamale from the Dragons. Is just they couldn't believe their club let him go. So they've got speed. They've been developing players and kids for a while in different positions. They've played Chris in centres at fullback. The Savage has played wing and fullback. They've had, they've got really good depth. And as I said, you've got the Trey Moonies and the Mariottas and the Simi Sasagis and all these players that have been there coming through the whole time. That kept developing to Pine to sort of take over Papali. Plus, you've got the Hudson Youngs continue to improve and get better. They're bringing a couple of English guys or rough and ready, They've good little hookers that go hard. And I think they've sort of worked on their skill and been a bit more mobile as well. But just because one club does it doesn't mean it's going to happen the same way for another club. That's just what about them? What about them? What about them? Well, they're the fucking Raiders. They had every reason actually to not do that well. They come out and the way they beat I've told everyone from the start they've been a threat. That they would do really well this year. I said it at the start of the year because the balance of their team on paper and the development of their squad and the fact that they've made finals, right? When told that they couldn't. The year before, gone to Melbourne and beat Melbourne in Melbourne numerous times. Won finals there. Grand finals only about 5 or 6 years ago, with a lot of some of the forwards that are in their side now. So they've got experience, they've got size, they've got mobility, they've got skill, they've got speed, and that wins. So they've got every chance to win a comp, and they're the type of team and that could do it. And Ricky Stewart's also started his coaching career in the year 2000 at the Bulldogs. Now 2025, Serrato. He's got about a fair bit on Serrato. The Dogs go to Canberra, though. Lose the first half 20-0, win the second half 32-0. I can tell you what, they haven't had as many injuries as we've had, or suspensions for that matter. So we've had to manage that, and they've got a far more depth in their squad, far more NRL games played, together. They're a more cohesive team, and their halfback hasn't been injured as like he has been in a lot of their seasons. He kicks long. He's accurate. He makes his tackles. That all helps. And they've probably got 3 of the best young halves, all like young Origin players and schoolboys representatives coming through the wings, and players like Chevy Stewart. They're a good side. Having Montoya back will be a big difference. Rest players next 2 weeks focus on beating the Sharks. It's an option, and I think they will. Yeah, but we weren't actually cooked in the semi-final, mate. We lost that because we were ill-disciplined. Not just Marnie, there was a couple of other players as well. Plus, they got blatant forward passes, man, which led to 2 tries in a big game. Like, that was fucked. Then they had one moment. They had more experienced players in that key moment, and we lost. Yeah, I know. Look, we have got players who are cooked. And that's what our system is going to do to players. Only the best and only a few get to a point where they can sustain it over numerous years. But for the most part, a lot of teams have an advantage over the Dogs is that they just haven't been put together like we have. They've got juniors that have been in their systems for a long time. They've got players playing together for a long time. And that's just where we lack, unfortunately. And that's why our club has weekly camps where they leave their families and their family is their teammates. And there we go, guys. Knocker Norton. We had Franklin Pele last year. Didn't end well. And Knockin' Ball. That's right. That's why they're no longer at the Bulldogs, brother. I think they're doing all right in second division for Bradford or something. Yeah, that sucked. He does dig into the fence. He does get a pass away, but he also communicates in a way with his people that make us very hard to beat. And he's very good for our on-goal defence. They feel much more confident when he's there. Like, confidence is everything as well. And players like Jamin Salmon give the players next to them confidence. So we just have to get rid of the perception that, he's not as fast, he's not as robust, he's not as big. What's his purpose? He's not making line breaks. Because when teams are sitting there worrying about Gavin and worrying about everything else, Salmon's, in some games, pulls their pants down. He pops up and scores tries when we need it. He's done it a few times in games as well. Like, we've just got players who are able to hold their cards up their sleeve and do things at certain points. And sometimes it's just a run, right, where they're sort of not expecting him to, but they're worried and they get him covered, but he gets away a good play of the ball and then it's on for the next play. I talk about this shit every fucking week. Timmy says, I believe we have the game to beat the Storm. We beat them in 23. Should have beaten them in 24. Both occasions we were massive outsiders. I'm backing the defence of the boys. He did do some nice kicks, Amir. No, mate, we don't want Tino. You just got to listen to Phil Gould. This is where I sort of want people to understand. Like, he can't understand that you can sign a 10-year deal for a prop on big money and then have it so that they can leave after 2. Like, he'd be like, just get the fuck out of our club. They don't want a player like that. And it was Laundy who wanted him. And they're like, if you can get him, go get him. Not saying he's not a great player, but if he wants to come to us for 600 or 700, based on how many games a year he plays, the fact you're not going to have him, like he said all this on his podcast, but I've listened to his podcast the whole time, so I understand how he operates just through what he says. And people call him a liar, but he's quite fucking transparent at the end of the day. So he's sitting there. If you go up to him and say, I want a new deal, I want an extension, he's like, what the fuck? I'll come see you when we're ready. Well, no, I could get a job with someone else. All right, we'll see ya. You don't give a fuck. You're not going to suck anyone's dick to keep them at the club. They either want to be here or they don't. Now, if they want more money, he's going to give them what they're worth, and he'll tell their manager that with an offer. When they force him to do that through the way that they play and the way that they interact and do everything at the club and the whole shebang. That's when it happens, no other way. And that's why we don't want Tino. Because his manager and him and whatever else seem to want an upgrade every 2 fucking years. I couldn't imagine doing that when you've just had so many injuries and your team's running last. Like, I just couldn't imagine it. Fucking take the money that you're getting and try to be loyal from that point of view. G'day, Adrian. Welcome. This kick rule is silly. This year's grand final will be like 2013 when Tupu leaped over Wolfman endlessly. Will likely be Coates the benefactor this year. 100%. Can't run without a head. David says we're just going to knock his head off. Or mass rest players against Storm Panthers and then regroup to beat the Sharks and buy out the Cobwebs in the final round. Yeah, but what if that doesn't work out? What if we rest players and then come up against the Sharks and they have to win to make the finals at all and we have to win? Sure, no. Work the other way. They want to go out there and test themselves against the 2 best teams in the comp towards the end of the year and have 2 of their newest spine players be exposed to that. And for that to be the case, they need their best team on the paddock. If they rest these players now, I would have rested them last week, say, and the week before that, and the week before that. That's what I would have done. But at the same time, they wanted to secure a certain position on the ladder, and that's what they've done. So they've had to think of the future while thinking of the present, while acknowledging what's best for the club. I'm not going to rest too many players, but I'd look at Max King if there's an issue for sure. Freshen him up and trust the boys to come in and get it done. But obviously Satili with the soft tissue injury is a bit of a risk, so you probably don't want to expose his minutes too much. You know, I think Serrato, this is the thing where I said I believe Serrato did fuck up, was putting him on 10 minutes after he'd come off. Putting him back on 10 minutes after he'd come off against the Dragons when he could have put Curran back on. And but I think the way he looks at it is Satili offers that attacking threat more so. And we just haven't had, those in behind kicks for Curran or anything like that this year. It's been more of a case of Satili runs really good lines and he just offers that little bit more of a threat with the ball. Plus he's aggressive without it. But yeah, they can't be playing Satili for two stints back to back trying to chase a game because he's likely to do another fucking injury. Those soft tissues, you've got to once you get fatigued, you're fucked. That's what happens. That's what they say. There we go. We can't be affording the resting players. Need combinations evolving. I think Montoya injury went under the radar a bit. His carries are very important. 1-2 punch with Carrazza being missing that combination with Crichton and Carrazza on that edge. Yeah, well, on the weekend, I don't think I think Montoya is not the best in the wet. And I also think he's not the best when he's the senior winger, if that makes sense. But yeah, he fucking tries hard, and he did quite well. We were quite secure with him. When we control the middle, he's got no issues with his defence. Would he have stopped those tries on the weekend? I doubt it. But he does offer a little bit. He hits hard in defence as well. Would he have made a difference to our side? Well, probably for the cohesion, yes. But at the same time, they wanted to develop some young players anyway, and they've had to do that. This chopping and changing wasn't about Galvin. It was about our progress. And it's just so beneficial for so many of these players to have had a run with the other players on the team. And come finals time, if there's injuries or whatever, we can call on a whole bunch of people to come in and to be able to do a job and have a lot more confidence to do it. And that's important. Playing now in French Union, we had Josh Reynolds for a couple of years as well, one of our own, one of your own. Are there any English players which interest you? I like Wellesby, but so does everyone. Yeah, I'm not too focused on the Pommies, to be honest. But I probably there's a couple of forwards there that I forget their name, but go well in the NRL. But you just got to be able to acclimatise them properly. The Raiders are really good at it. We brought Luke Thompson into our side and just rushed him through, and it just fucked him right up. He just couldn't get his body right. They've got to acclimatise. They've got to be given time. And we brought him to sort of try and give our fans some hope. And that worked out shockingly bad. And I do think he's a good player. He's capable of NRL. But yeah, there's some props there that would hold their own. But we brought Tom Amone over to the Bulldogs. And he just found himself about, eighth in line because he just wasn't up to the fitness, even though he's playing long minutes over there. So, yeah, the Dogs aren't a huge fan of English Super League as far as the way they look at stats and assess effort and speed and intensity over 80 minutes of high energy. And that's how they look at things. And the Dogs are using a heap of AI and shit like that to not to give too much away, but that's what they're doing. Hayes has outperformed Curran this year and one of our most consistent. Yeah, you'd be right in that perception, and that's exactly what's happened. As I said, I think Curran is a little bit to go along with David's cooked theory. Curran's probably really put his body on the line for a bit longer, and it's taken a bit of a toll. But I trust he'll have a really good effort in a big game. I'm just worried about the confidence at the moment. Down, it seems to be down a little bit. But yeah, that's why Hayes has just been extended. I'm not sure Curran will be extended. I'd probably say he won't, but and this is going to just be one of the fallouts for people who come into our place, win our hearts and minds. Will always remain Bulldogs in our brains. Players that don't really want to ever leave, that will sort of outplay their worth, or they will essentially be will know that their body, that they're not going to improve, and we've got people coming through that are potentially going to go to a higher level or expect they will, and that's where they will make way. And you just, the writing's on the wall when you look at players like Jack Todd and Underhill and these bigger bodies with big engines coming through. They're likely to take a spot of a Josh Curran in our top 30 within the next couple of years. But hopefully, that's just the way it works. Just the way it is. I'm here to say sweet dreams. Night, James. Thanks for allowing me to go to bed, because I'm going to say sweet dreams to you all as well. And thanks to everyone who joins. Make sure you like and subscribe. For those who I've challenged their thoughts and views, I don't apologise. I thank you for providing your view, and hopefully take something from what I had to say in regards to it, even if I was passionate or called you wrong or called you an idiot like Brian, who probably left because I was fucking giving it to him, but that's all right. He obviously he loves the Bulldogs as much as I do. Win, loss, or draw, will always support the boys. That's it, Michael. Thank you. That's it, brother. Very long podcast. Way longer. I told me missus I was going to be an hour. It's been 3. So there you go. Like, subscribe. If you haven't joined, join them. Pay me money. Because I'd work hard for you guys. I'm only joking, but yeah, whatever. I love yous all. Go the Dogs.